Hi and welcome, I'm Andy Mioch and you are watching A News. Here are the headlines. US and China agree to temporarily slash tariffs on each other's goods. Volodymyr Zelensky says he's ready to meet Vladimir Putin in Istanbul. Donald Trump suggests he could join. Kurdish armed group PKK to disband and disarm. Turkish foreign minister hails the move as historic. Thank you for tuning in. The United States and China agreed to slash tariffs on each other's goods for 90 days. The de-escalation will see US tariffs on Chinese imports fall from 145 to 30%, while Chinese levies on American goods will fall from 125 to 10%.
The United States and China have agreed to a 90-day pause in their trade war, with both countries committing to sharply reduce tariffs in a bid to ease global market uncertainty and revive economic cooperation. Speaking after high-level talks in Geneva on Monday, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced the deal, which will see China cut tariffs on US goods from 125% to 10%, while the US will reduce tariffs on Chinese imports from 145% to 30%. The revised American levy includes a 10% base rate and an additional 20% tax hike on fentanyl-related products. In a joint statement, both sides have pledged to a long-term and balanced trade relationship. Bessent called the talks robust and said both countries defended their interests well.
The consensus from both delegations this weekend is neither side wants a decoupling. And what had occurred with these very high tariffs, as Ambassador Greer said, was the equivalent of an embargo, and neither side wants that. We do want trade. We want more balanced trade, and I think that both sides are committed to achieving that.
China's Ministry of Commerce described the agreement with the US as a crucial step toward resolving differences and laying the foundation to bridge gaps and deepen cooperation. In a joint statement, both countries announced the creation of a new mechanism to continue discussions on economic and trade relations, led by Scott Bessent and China's Vice Premier, He Lifeng. The statement emphasized that both nations believe ongoing talks could address their respective concerns in the trade relationship. A spokesperson also expressed hope that the US would build on this foundation, continue working with China, and fully correct its unilateral tariff policies. During an interview with CNBC, Bessent stated that he expects to meet with China again in the next few weeks, with the next meeting likely focusing on a more comprehensive agreement. He also mentioned that they would work on addressing non-tariff barriers and expressed confidence that China is now committed to stopping the flow of fentanyl into the US. After the agreement, European shares also climbed, giving investors hope that a full-scale trade war might be avoided. The breakthrough follows a steep escalation in April, when President Donald Trump raised tariffs on Chinese goods to 145%, reigniting tensions in a trade conflict that began in 2018. China responded with its own levy increases, further straining global trade and the economic relationship between the world's two largest economies.
US President Donald Trump said that his administration has achieved a, quote, total reset with China. Markets in the United States surged after the temporary deal to ease tariffs was announced. The US-China trade talks yielded a much more significant drop in tariffs than many had anticipated, and the markets reacted accordingly. The Dow Jones jumped over 600 points, while the S&P 500 and Nasdaq also saw strong gains. A group of top European diplomats issued a statement after talks on Ukraine in London, saying that Moscow has shown no serious intention to make progress in the peace process, urging Russia to do so without delay. The foreign ministers of France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, and the UK, as well as the EU foreign policy chief, welcomed the US-led peace efforts and the prospect of continuing negotiations this week. They announced pursuing measures to reduce Russia's ability to wage war by limiting Kremlin's revenue. The diplomats said they would continue to explore the creation of a coalition of air, land, and maritime reassurance forces that could support any future peace in Ukraine.
The Europeans will want peace. Ukraine and the government of President Zelensky want peace. Now it's up to Russia and Vladimir Putin to give their answer. Do they want peace?
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he's ready to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin personally in Istanbul this Thursday to talk on ending the war. US President Donald Trump told reporters in the White House he might join the meeting, which Zelensky later welcomed.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he will be in Istanbul on Thursday for direct talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, challenging him to personally attend. It follows encouragement from US President Donald Trump. It's after Putin proposed talks in Turkey during a televised address on Saturday night, but it remains unclear whether he plans to attend in person. Zelensky, speaking in his nightly address on Sunday, reiterated Ukraine's support for a ceasefire and called on Russia to provide a clear response.
Starting from tomorrow, we expect a ceasefire. The proposal for this is on the table. A complete and unconditional ceasefire, long enough to provide the necessary foundation for diplomacy, could bring peace much closer.
He added that Ukraine is willing to negotiate in any format and urged Moscow to respond to international calls for de-escalation.
Russia's war will still have to end. The killing must end. Ukrainian forces will be ready to mirror their response with fairness. We are ready for any format.
Zelensky said the ball is now in Russia's court and called on Putin to attend the meeting.
I will be in Turkey this Thursday, May the 15th, and I'm expecting Putin in Turkey, personally. I hope this time Putin will not look for reasons why he can't do something. We are ready to talk to end the war, Thursday in Turkey. President Trump supports it. All leaders support it.
Analysts say the proposal marks a significant move by Zelensky, especially after days of coordinated calls from European leaders for a 30-day ceasefire. Some observers also view the move as an attempt to show flexibility to key allies, including Washington.
Zelensky's announcement that he's willing to go to Turkey and essentially wait for Vladimir Putin, and his willingness to act boldly in the name of Ukraine's national defense. Zelensky is very much trying to put the front foot back on Vladimir Putin. I think he is trying to show to the U.S. that as heterodox as some of Trump's proposals and ideas may be, and as much as he may shoot from the hip on some of this policymaking, that he's willing to be a partner who adapts to some of those U.S. demands, recognizing the importance of its support.
As Thursday's proposed meeting draws closer, there has been no official confirmation from the Kremlin on Putin's attendance. The two leaders have not met since 2019, when talks were held in Paris alongside France and Germany.
We heard that even if the meeting were to go ahead, that Vladimir Putin would meaningfully alter his strategy or give up the territory that he is occupying in Ukraine.
The focus now shifts to Istanbul, where the possibility of direct talks remains uncertain amid ongoing diplomatic efforts.
The Kremlin did not confirm whether Vladimir Putin will be going to Istanbul for the direct peace talks with Ukraine. Noting that Russia is serious about finding peace at the talks in Turkey, the Kremlin spokesman said he could say no more about the talks. Moscow also said that Russia's push for talks has been supported by leaders from CIS, BRICS, and Donald Trump. The Kremlin added that Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is ready to help organize negotiations. Possible direct peace talks in Istanbul drew different reactions in Moscow and Kyiv. While some are cautiously optimistic, others remain deeply skeptical.
In the Ukrainian capital, Many residents are questioning the timing and motives behind Russian President Vladimir Putin's offer of direct talks with Ukraine. Some believe it may be more about political maneuvering than a genuine push for peace.
There have been warnings issued by the United States that there may be rocket attacks over the next 2 days. At the same time, there is Putin's proposal on direct talks. To be honest, it has become very difficult to understand what's going on amid all this information. For us, peaceful civilians, what matters is to have peace as soon as possible.
Putin is trying to buy time. It is just empty talk of no consequence. He is trying to buy time. He proposed to hold talks on Thursday because I read the news about it. Russians are closing the skies over Kapustin Yar, a Russian military training ground and rocket launch complex in Astrakhan region, on the 12th and 13th, which means we should expect another attack. US has issued warning about it.
Meanwhile, in Moscow, some residents expressed cautious hope that the proposal could mark a step toward ending the war.
I would like direct talks between Russia and Ukraine, because everyone wants peace and there are opportunities for this. And I think that a lot depends on the strength, or precisely the will, of Vladimir Putin in the negotiations. If he has made such an offer, it means he has his own plan. I hope it will be positive. There will be a long-awaited ceasefire and then peace.
You know, I'm not sure at all that they will be able to come to an agreement quickly. This process is complicated. But if a powerful third country isn't involved in this effort, then it's unlikely that Russia and Ukraine will reach an agreement.
For now, the prospect of a ceasefire hangs in the balance, and the war continues to grind on.
Joining us from Boston to talk on the latest surrounding the war in Ukraine is political scientist Daniela Mello. Welcome, thank you so much for joining us. Now, Ukrainian president confirmed he will be in Istanbul on Thursday, while there's no response from Moscow. US President Donald Trump just hours ago told reporters that he might join, which Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed as a good idea. What do you make of this? Could this be maybe a tactic to get Putin to come to the talks?
Hello, and thank you for the invitation. What I see happening right now is primarily a delay from Putin to, or a tactic from Putin trying to delay as much as possible any movement in this front. So what we see initially was Poland, Britain, Germany, and France in communication with the United States, primarily not directly with President Trump, but via his envoy to Ukraine, Kellogg, who was trying to basically come up with a consensus, all of these countries coming up with a consensus about asking for an immediate ceasefire before any talks could happen. From the moment that Russia replies with wanting direct talks right away, and President Trump undercuts the allies by basically saying that Zelensky should immediately jump in at the opportunity to meet in Istanbul, the game shifted. And the strategic game shifted in a way that, as I see it, Zelensky is trying to call the bluff from President Putin. Why? President Putin is trying to gain time. Zelensky is basically saying, no time, let's meet right away. If what you want to do is meeting, then I'm open to do it. I'll be in Istanbul on Thursday. It's unlikely that Putin is now going to agree to this very quick turnaround in the meeting preparation. But I think that's exactly what Zelensky is counting on, that Putin is not going to take the next step to actually make this meeting happen, and that indeed the Europeans are going to go away with tougher sanctions and some other form of pushback against Russia.
Now that you mentioned it, you also touched upon this earlier. Ukraine and Ukraine's allies called for a 30-day ceasefire effective immediately. Germany and France have said today that Russia has until the end of the day to respond or face new sanctions. What kind of sanctions would you say are possible now? And do you see Moscow agreeing to a temporary truce in the interest of peace talks?
It isn't clear how much leverage the Europeans have in actually bringing Russia to agree to the ceasefire. It is not in the interest of Vladimir Putin to have a ceasefire that could allow the Ukrainians to rethink their strategy, reallocate their armament, redeploy their military strategy on the ground in a way that could, benefit them. It is certainly so. What I mean to say with this is that Vladimir Putin doesn't have much of an interest in actually agreeing to a complete ceasefire at this point. So he's going to try to drag his feet. The Europeans do have leverage when it comes to sanctions. If they have not revealed exactly what these sanctions would look like, but they did signal that this would be a very strong second round of sanctions. At this particular juncture, of course, this is an issue for Russia. Russia has been able to stave off the worst consequences of the sanctions, but there's no doubt that its economy is suffering and that it will suffer even more if the Europeans go ahead with this plan. What's a gamble here is what the United States continues to do. Right now, the United States, for instance, has agreed to allow armament to move from Germany to Ukraine. That clearly sent a red flag to the Russians. But at the same time, then Donald Trump came and undercut the negotiations with its European allies by basically jumping the gun and saying that this face-to-face meeting should happen. So it's unclear and it's difficult to predict how this will play out.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights.
Thank you.
Over in the Middle East, Hamas has released an Israeli-American hostage, Edan Alexander, ahead of U.S. President Donald Trump's visit to the broader region this week. Israel has said it has not given Hamas any concessions. In the meantime, the aid blockade of Gaza continues, with a UN-backed assessment saying that the population is at critical risk of famine.
After months of deadlock, Hamas released Edan Alexander, a 21-year-old Israeli-American soldier held hostage in Gaza since the 7th of October 2023. The handover took place in Khan Yunis, in the southern Gaza Strip. Alexander, born and raised in New Jersey, is believed to be the last living American hostage held by Hamas.
Edan is a great guy, Jersey boy, all-American kid, great swimmer. Graduated from the high school like everybody else instead of college. Traveled to Israel, served in IDF, and found himself on the wrong spot in the wrong time.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu thanked US President Donald Trump on Monday for helping to secure Alexander's release. The news comes as US President Donald Trump prepares to visit the Middle East this week. He also made a post on Truth Social, thanking the mediators and calling the release a step taken in good faith toward ending the conflict. The joint statement from Qatar and Egypt welcomed the development, saying it could revive the stalled ceasefire talks that collapsed 2 months ago. They reaffirmed their commitment to pushing for a permanent ceasefire. Meanwhile, conditions in Gaza continue to deteriorate. Since the 2nd of March, Israel has cut off all supplies to the Strip's 2.3 million residents. Food reserves stockpiled during a temporary truce have nearly run out, and the United Nations has warned of imminent famine. Hamas has indicated it is willing to release all remaining hostages as part of a comprehensive agreement that includes a permanent ceasefire and a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. Israel, however, insists the war will not end until Hamas is dismantled. Earlier in May, Israel said that its military campaign might expand.
Algeria has ordered the expulsion of several French embassy staff, accusing them of breaching diplomatic protocol. Algerian authorities say that 2 of them worked for the French Special Intelligence Service and have allegedly entered the country using fake diplomatic passports.
Algeria has summoned the French Chargé d'Affaires in Algiers and ordered the immediate expulsion of multiple French embassy employees, citing what it called serious and repeated breaches of diplomatic protocol. At the centre of the latest row are at least 15 French personnel who allegedly took up posts in Algeria without proper accreditation. Among the accused, 2 officials from France's Interior Ministry Directorate of Internal Security, reportedly intelligence agents, are accused of entering the country using fake diplomatic passports. Algerian authorities say the appointments, including staff transferred after a previous expulsion, bypassed formal notification channels. This marks the second expulsion of French diplomatic staff in under a month. In April, Algeria expelled 12 French embassy employees in retaliation for the arrest of an Algerian consular officer in Paris. French authorities accused that official of involvement in the kidnapping of an Algerian opposition figure, a charge that Algiers strongly rejected. In response, France expelled 12 Algerian diplomats and recalled its ambassador in Algiers for consultations, escalating a tit-for-tat diplomatic standoff. Despite efforts to de-escalate tensions, including a late March phone call between President Abdelmadjid Tebboune and French President Emmanuel Macron, and a visit to Algiers by French Minister Jean-Noël Barrot in early April, relations continue to strain.
Protests broke out across France on Sunday following the fatal stabbing of a young Muslim in a mosque. Demonstrators demanded justice and denounced the rise of Islamophobia in politics and media.
Hundreds of protesters marched through Paris and other major French cities on Sunday, condemning rising Islamophobia. They're demanding justice for Abu Bakr Cissé, a young 22-year-old Muslim man who was fatally stabbed at a mosque last month. Rallies took place in Paris, Marseille, Lyon and other cities, saying it's in response to growing anti-Muslim sentiment in French politics and the media. In Paris, the march began at Place de la Bastille and ended at Place de la Nation, with chants of "Stop Islamophobia" and "Justice for Abu Bakr" echoing through the streets. Demonstrators also condemned Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau's immigration and security policies. The protesters were holding signs reading "Islamophobia kills." The state and media contribute to it. "Let's resist," and "Retailleau, Abu Bakr's blood is on your hands."
The PKK is disbanding. The group has announced an end to its 4-decade armed struggle. Presented as part of a new peace process with Ankara, the decision is seen as a turning point for regional stability.
The Kurdistan Workers' Party has decided to end its armed struggle and disband after 4 decades. The decision, made during its 12th Congress, is part of a peace process initiated by Turkey. This follows a call from PKK leader Abdullah Öcalan in February to lay down arms. Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan called the decision historic and stressed that concrete steps for disbandment must be taken and closely monitored.
On this issue, I think if this decision is implemented sincerely and enacted in a way that will eliminate other concerns, it will be a very good decision for our future, our citizens, for everyone.
Herkes için çok hayırlı bir karar olacağını düşünüyorum.
Syria's Foreign Minister Asa'ad Hassan al-Shibani called the PKK's decision to end armed struggle and disband a critical moment for regional stability, highlighting its importance for both Turkey and the broader region's security.
On behalf of the Syrian Arab Republic, we congratulate the Turkish government and its people on their recent agreement with the Kurdistan Workers' Party, PKK. This step marks a pivotal moment, not only for Turkish internal security, but also for the stability of our whole region. The success of this effort reflects the main goals we've gathered for today: restoring security, safeguarding sovereignty, and ending the continuous cycles of violence in our region.
The PKK, which began its armed insurgency in 1984, resulting in nearly 40,000 deaths, economic damage and social tension. Its decision to end armed struggle will impact not only Turkey, but also Kurdish-inhabited areas in Iraq and Syria. This move is seen as a pivotal step toward ending the long-standing conflict and ushering in a new phase of stability.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan met with his Syrian counterpart Assad al-Shaibani in Ankara. The two met on the sidelines of the trilateral meeting of foreign ministers of Turkey, Jordan and Syria, aimed at addressing regional developments and security challenges. Fidan also held a bilateral meeting with the Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi. On the expanding role of Turkey in Syria, we're talking with analyst Hamdi Rifai, coming to us from Washington. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, Ankara was among the first to pledge support for the efforts to reunite and rebuild Syria. How far would you say that the relationship with Damascus has evolved since December and the ouster of Bashar al-Assad?
Well, Turkey has been a major player in Syria since before 2015. It's important to remember that even before the revolution, Syria was used by Assad as a landing point to launch terrorist strikes against Turkey, and there was an intense amount of trade between Turkey and Syria. So Turkey and Syria have always had bilateral relations and issues upon which they needed to deal with one another. That relationship certainly evolved over time and has become more intense, as you've said. But I think what we're going to see in the future is a bilateral relationship that is beyond any two other nations together, because Syria and Turkey share a common history, interests, trade, security. Really, the interests align very closely in many respects.
Recent reports say that there were discussions held on military cooperation as well, including Turkey safeguarding Syria's airspace. Now, how much would you say that such support would mean to Damascus in the light of Israeli airstrikes we've witnessed since the interim administration took over?
It's incredibly important to understand that without Turkey's having military bases in Syria, Syria would essentially be defenseless. It doesn't have an army per se. The army's been destroyed. It's building a new nation under intense scrutiny from the world. So without Turkey's help, it would probably not succeed. These military bases and air support are essential because Turkey is under attack by Israel, and Iran continues to conspire and create plots to overthrow the government there using the minorities, the Druze, of Soweto, anyone that will listen to them or will act on their behalf. Many of these people, former Assad regime loyalists who are just looking to take advantage. So Turkey's air support in Syria is essential. And it's important to also take this full circle and remember that while PKK is disbanding in Turkey, in Syria, the YPG is not disbanded. And the YPG has been flying the flag of the PKK in Öcalan for many years. There's really no distinguishing the two. So it's important for Turkey to maintain that role in Syria, to maintain its own security, and its own security is largely dependent on Syria's stability.
Do you expect something similar to happen to the YPG as has happened now with the PKK?
Well, the YPG has reached certain agreements through the SDF with the new Syrian government. However, it's also clear that many elements of the YPG are not on board with that, continue to kidnap children to fight against the Syrian state and to fight against Turkey, continues to train young women to go die in their cause. So I think that it's yet to be seen whether the YPG will be defeated in Syria in the short term. I anticipate it will remain a problem for some time, and that's why it'll be important for Turkey to remain very involved in Syria.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights.
God bless you and your viewers.
The Turkish National Defense Minister Yaşar Güler is set to visit Baku for a series of meetings with Azerbaijani officials, according to reports from TRT. As part of the visit, Güler is expected to hold meetings aimed at strengthening bilateral defense ties and regional security cooperation. Azerbaijan and the European Union have discussed expanding energy cooperation, focusing on the supply of natural gas, green energy and hydrogen to European countries. Azerbaijani Energy Minister Parviz Shahbazov shared the update after meeting with Gert Jan Koopman, the EU's Director General for Neighborhood and Enlargement Negotiations. Talks also covered the development of energy corridors, investment opportunities, and the future of the Azerbaijan-EU energy dialogue, as both sides look to strengthen Europe's energy security. The Russian Ministry of Industry and Trade aims to open an industrial park in Azerbaijan in 2025. An official of the Russian ministry announced the plan in Tashkent. The park would be the first joint industrial project of the two countries, and it is expected to support manufacturing, technology, and trade partnerships. Kazakhstan's Transport Ministry says the final report on the Azerbaijan Airlines crash near Aktau will be published once the full investigation is complete. Officials stress that the inquiry is proceeding according to international standards. The field investigation phase has already wrapped up and a preliminary report was released earlier this year. Meanwhile, Kazakhstan's main transport prosecutor's office has declined to share any new details, citing legal restrictions on disclosing investigative data during ongoing proceedings. Kazakhstan and the United Arab Emirates are deepening their strategic partnership. During the visit of the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi to Astana, dozens of agreements were signed. Our Fariza Kalimurzina has more.
Kazakhstan and the United Arab Emirates have signed more than 20 commercial agreements totaling $5 billion. The deals were concluded during the official visit of Abu Dhabi's Crown Prince Sheikh Khaled bin Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan to Astana. The two sides agreed on cooperation in transportation, the digital transformation of the oil and gas sector, expansion of the merchant fleet, and the implementation of round-the-clock energy supply projects. One of the flagship initiatives is the construction of a 1 gigawatt wind power plant in the Jambul region by the UAE-based company Masdar. The project is valued at $1.4 billion. Once fully operational, the wind farm is expected to generate over 3.4 billion kilowatt hours of electricity annually, helping reduce carbon dioxide emissions by around 2 million tons. The IT sector saw agreements amounting to $250 million. These include plans to build a supercomputing cluster and a data center in Kazakhstan. According to the Castrate Center for Trade Policy Development, bilateral trade between the two countries reached $277 million in 2024. President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev noted that the United Arab Emirates is among the top 10 foreign investors in Kazakhstan's economy. Last year, investment from the Emirates more than doubled, exceeding $1 billion. The partnership between the two countries continues to grow across energy, transport, logistics, and digital infrastructure. The Crown Prince also expressed the UAE's readiness to deepen cooperation in logistics, including airport development and digital modernization. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, A News.
India is set to deliver the second batch of Akash surface-to-air missile systems to Armenia in July, according to Indian defense news outlets. The move follows a 2022 deal worth $710 million, under which Armenia is buying 15 Akash systems in India's first export of the missile. The Akash system can target jets, missiles, and drones up to 25 kilometers away. Each unit includes a 3D radar and 4 launchers with 3 missiles each. Georgian Parliament Speaker Shalva Papuashvili is attending the Conference of Speakers of EU member and partner states in Budapest. According to Georgian officials, he is expected to hold several meetings, including on a potential reset in Georgia's relations with the European Union. The conference brings together parliamentarian leaders from EU member states and mainly candidate countries. Senior officials from China and Pakistan visited Kabul over the weekend for trilateral talks, focusing on enhancing political ties, regional security and economic cooperation. Our Tamim Bahiz has more.
Chinese and Pakistani delegations visited Kabul over the weekend for high-level trilateral talks with Afghan officials aiming to boost cooperation on political, economic and regional issues. China's Special Envoy Yui Xiaoyong and Pakistan's Envoy Muhammad Sadiq held separate meetings with key Afghan leaders, including Acting Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi, Interior Minister Sirajuddin Haqqani, and Industry and Commerce Minister Nuruddin Azizi. Talks focused on preparation for upcoming 6th trilateral dialogue between foreign ministers of Afghanistan, China, and Pakistan, set to be held in Kabul. They also discussed the next regional foreign ministers meeting. Afghanistan's foreign minister stressed the need for strong political and economic ties with both neighbors. The visiting envoys reaffirmed their commitment to mutual respect and regional cooperation. Interior Minister Haqqani discussed regional security and the role of trilateral diplomacy, while Commerce Minister Azizi led economic talks on trade, investment, industrial parks, special economic zones, and improved banking ties. These meetings mark a renewed push towards regional cooperation as Kabul seeks stronger integration into the regional economy. This is Tamim Bahiz in Kabul for A News.
Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.